All right, welcome to the Nerds Cantos. Today it's just me, Xander, and Stewie here. Say hi, Stewie.
Hi.
Awesome. We got a little thing here going on because the Fire Punch video we put out has 291 views.
That 200? Jesus Christ.
291. It's probably gonna hit 300. I checked last night. It was at 22. I felt really good because our highest viewed Cantos, I think, is the first one at like 60. So I was like, damn, 22. That's really good. And then I checked this morning and it was at 200. And I was like, okay. I was like, oh shit, interesting. I think I also gained one sub, so thank you. Just getting the nice and easy stuff out of the way. But if you watched the Fire Punch review, I made a promise. Thankfully, the Aliens one only got 3 views, I should add. And it was supposed to get 5 if I was going to read Battlefield Earth. But it only got 3. So I don't have to read Battlefield Earth. But I made a promise at the end of the Fire Punch one that I would read Osayasu PunPun or I think it's just Goodnight PunPun, right? That's what it translates to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it
So I'll
is.
just call it PunPun because that's all I've called it for now. But I read PunPun. I made this promise. I saw it get 15 views. And then I said, okay, all right, I can do this. I have a couple hours to kill. So I read it all in one day. Pretty much one sitting. I think it was like a good 6 hour sitting. Wow.
Yeah.
So this is my first reaction is, wow. Wow. It's kind of hard to formulate thoughts about this manga, but I do have quite a few thoughts actually. But first, I want to shoot it to you, Stewie. When you were reading this, were you enjoying it? Give me your thought process going on here, right?
Um, have you ever like just like awoke like in the middle of the night with the worst feeling ever in
Yeah,
existence?
yeah,
Imagine that for 5 hours.
yeah,
Imagine
yeah,
imagine just doing that to yourself for 5 hours. It
yeah.
was awful. It was pretty bad.
So bad. It's
Um
so,
yeah, there's no other way to put
so
it.
bad.
Very bad
Because
feeling.
I want to get it out of the way because I already know what I am titling this video, which is to fill you in, Stewie. It's I hate pun pun, right? Or I might put I hate Goodnight PunPun, but it doesn't matter because I started it out, and for years now I've heard Stewie and Nolan sort of talk about this pun pun manga so bad that Nolan had to quit it, right? Which is like to me, I'm like, damn, like shit. Okay, that's crazy, but I didn't want to read it because like I don't necessarily. I don't like those kinds of things, and I like myself some grim dark fantasy stuff, but like I don't like that shit where it's just like and then the character gets raped 7 times, right? And then he murders 10 people, and I'm just like, okay, I'm like, all right, dog, I'm trying to have fun here. But hey, I'd do anything for views. Okay, that's not true, but I'll do a couple things for views, and one of those is reading Pun Pun. So I started it, Stewie, and getting into it, I think the first like 6 chapters, I was a little weirded out because I knew I knew fucked up shit was gonna happen. I knew rape was involved somehow. I heard you two mention the word rape, so I was like, shit. Also, I should say full spoilers for Pun Pun. And if you're for some reason here to figure out what Pun Pun is, this shit's bad. And I don't mean bad like it's written bad. I mean it's real. There's a lot of bad shit in this, so maybe
This will
don't.
make you depressed. This will
I
this
think it'll
will
move
send you
further
through a
than that. There's
spiral.
rape, there's murder, there's suicide. Like if you're the faint of heart, do not read Bun Bun, and that's the most warning I'm gonna give because I don't know, but full spoilers ahead. Reading the first 6 chapters, I was like, okay, you know, it was weird. You fucking tinkle tinkle hoy God or whatever, and the
Oh
God
yeah,
appears,
God.
which is like that confused me a lot at the beginning. I was like, what is this? Um, but it didn't seem like too fucked up, and I don't think it really got fucked up until I want to say like the uncle stuff or like the video the kids found. If you remember that, I don't know how long ago you read it, but
I read it when I was like, I don't know, 15,
okay,
something
so
like
this is
that.
a long time ago. But you know what I'm talking about when I mentioned the video. You remember?
And
that?
I remember the video. I remember the uncle stuff. I remember him meeting the other kid that what's her name?
Aiko.
Yeah, Aiko.
Yeah.
That Aiko dated. I remember him. I remember him going down a spiral. I remember him meeting another girl who he kind of liked.
Okay, so I can do a quick
I remember
little. Yeah, you
most
remember
of
most
it.
of it, but like it seems just kind of like this sort of fucked up outlook on like a coming of age story, where like PunPun meets Aiko and he falls in love, and then he comes for the first time on his bed and like loses his mind over it. PunPun passes out a lot in the first like 50 chapters, I should add. Like the slightest bit of anything happens, like Aiko would like touch his shoulder and he would collapse on the floor in front of the entire class. And he's in like they mentioned he's an elementary school kid. So the dude's like 10 and I'm like, homie. Like I don't know if you got that reaction to it, but I was like, calm down, man. It ain't that deep, PunPun.
I think he may be a bit of an unreliable narrator, like that kind of thing going on.
He definitely is an unreliable narrator, but did you like that he was the little bird guy?
It's kind of amusing, yeah.
I think
I found it a bit amusing.
I think it's amusing, but for me, it almost like that was the first thing. One of the other reasons I never read the manga. I'd heard all this fucked up shit about it, but I just didn't like. Because, like, you know, I hear you and Nolan being like, oh my god, I can't. You know, he just got raped or rape is happening. And then I'd, like, look up a photo of it and it'd just be, like, a little bird dude. And I'd be like, what? You know, I'd be like, what the fuck even? I just kind of, for some of the scenes, like, I felt it was a little hard to, like, imagine it properly. I don't know if that makes sense, because I'd be like, oh, this really fucked up thing is happening. And then I'd, like, chuckle at the little bird guy. And I'd be like, wait a minute, I shouldn't be laughing. You know, I'd be like, this is horrendous. And then I'm just looking at this goofy bird dude, which I do think later is kind of changed. Later gets to the point where I'm like, But in the early stages of it, I was kind of like, I wasn't jiving with the bird, is what I was trying to say. But the video stuff was fucked up. But it was nothing I ain't never seen before. Aiko was a little weird. At first, with like.
At first,
well, she becomes normal towards the end, which we'll get to. But like at first, I was like, "If you break your promise, I'm gonna kill you." And then PunPun like loses his mind, where he's like, "Oh my god, she's gonna kill me." Also, I should mention that fucks him up.
And by a bit, I
that's
mean
the whole
for
manga.
half the manga.
No, that's the entire manga. That ruins him. I should mention also his dad is his mom's not great either. His dad's...
None of his family are good people.
So,
basically.
I mean, I was speed reading and stuff.
There's a single good person in his family.
No, well, okay.
His mother kind of
His mother at the end.
Better.
His mother at the end becomes a lot better. Before she fucking dies. I mean, like, goddamn. And his uncle... His uncle's almost a great guy, and then he does one thing, which we'll get to, because I want to talk about the uncle, because I genuinely thought the uncle was going to rape the shit out of PunPun. I was, like, the entire time, I was like, no, please, like, no, don't.
Oh, you went in with bad info, I forgot.
Yeah, because I hear rape, and I murder, and I'm like, so I see the uncle, and I'm like, no, PunPun. I was like, get out of there, man. Like, the whole time I was like, please, get the fuck away from the uncle. But then I started, like, liking the uncle when Aiko and her mom show up at their doorstep, and Aiko's mom is like super Christian or whatever, and she's like, do you believe in God, sir? And then the uncle tries to play it nice at first, but he goes, no, we're not looking for that. I don't really believe in God myself, but if you could just leave. And she like doesn't let him close the door and is like, sir, do you not believe in God? And they're freaking out at each other, and I just really like the way the uncle just loses his mind after like 5 minutes of dealing with this, where he just screams, "God's not fucking real!" Like right as PunPun walks out, and like he had told PunPun this whole thing,
which also fucks him up.
Well, yeah, because he 3 years earlier had been like, PunPun, whenever you're in a bad moment, go tinkle tinkle hoy, and then fucking God will appear, and then it does for PunPun. There's just some dude who's there, which later you find out is just like actually PunPun's like inner thoughts or whatever. God tells him to do some fucked up shit. In this, I want to add, God is not on PunPun's side.
No one really is in the manga.
No, not a soul is actually like helping PunPun. It's always for some like ulterior motive that they would even bother to talk to him. But then the uncle gets into some fucked up shit after that, where I was like, oh, it kind of like the uncle's kind of fun. After that moment, I was like, oh, he seems pretty chill. But then he starts going to this cafe where he meets this like server who, you know, they're kind of hitting it off. Like, he's attracted to the server. She's clearly attracted to him. Now, he's a little older. I think he's like 5 or 6 years older. But, like, hey, she was like 25, I think. So it's like, yeah, okay. There ain't nothing wrong going on here. And then she asks him out on a date. And dude, this is when I lost it. Stewie, this is for me where the manga, where I went, oh, I'm not going to like any of this. Because the uncle looks at her. And he goes, no, you don't know me. You don't know me. You don't know me. And she's like, we went on a date or whatever. Like, we got coffee together. I've been talking to you for a couple months. Like, I might not know all of you, but I think I know you pretty well. And he goes, you don't understand. I jacked off for the first time in 5 years last night to you. And this is for me, because this is where the manga lost me, because I didn't know what was it trying to do? Because instead of her being, like, disgusted by that, she goes, man, you must have been through some really traumatic things. Do you want to talk about it? Whereas I feel like if any man had said that to a real woman, they'd, like, that's disgusting. You know what I mean? Am I alone in thinking that? Like,
I mean, no. But, you know, someone called her reaction a foul omen, you know. But, yeah.
That's fair. It is.
Uncle is weird.
The uncle's weird, and then he tells this backstory where he's got this great girlfriend, and he's doing this pottery class, and this woman in this pottery class really wants to...
pottery class.
This woman in the pottery class really wants to fuck him, but he doesn't want to fuck her because she's older than him, and he's got a great girlfriend.
She's like 50.
But she has a daughter who's 16? Wait a minute, you know? You're like, oh, okay. And the daughter wants to fuck the uncle. And the uncle kind of goes on a couple dates with her, but at first it's like the pottery class woman is like, I really need someone to pick up my daughter, like drive my daughter somewhere. Can you do that? And the uncle's like, sure. But then it kind of like turns into him being like, oh, this 16-year-old is attractive. And at this point, and I think he was 25 when this was happening. So I was like, uncle. I was like, wait a minute, dude. No, I was like, my man, I kind of liked you. Like, can you not? And then he almost fucks her. Or like, she kind of rapes him, like almost gets to it. And then he like pushes her off and she's like, fine. And then his girlfriend comes home. So he shoves the 16-year-old in, like, the closet. And then him and his girlfriend have sex in front of the 16-year-old. And then, like, after that, he, like, his life was ruined. Like, he just lost, like, he broke up with his girlfriend. He never wanted to see the 16-year-old again. But also, the 16-year-old started fucking the other guy in the pottery class and then convinced him to murder pretty much, like, 5 people in the pottery class in front of everybody. So PunPun's uncle just, like, loses it. He stops going to work. He stops hanging out with people. Cut to, you know, back to him being at the cafe with this server lady that he kind of likes, and she kind of likes him. And they end up getting together. And the first thing he does upon them getting together is profess that he can't take it. He doesn't deserve any of this. So he runs to the train tracks and just stands there. He's like, I'm just going to kill myself. I'm just going to do it. And then she kind of, like, saves him. And he makes, like, a proclamation where it's like, okay, I'll get with you and I'll love you. But at the first sign of, like, anything bad happening, you have to kill me. And she agrees to it. And I was like, man, this guy needs... Like, this man needs professional help, you know? Like, that was my entire reaction to that. I was like, someone send this guy to a therapist.
All of them do.
And this is So this was kind of the start. Like I said, this was the start of me hating PunPun, where I was like, okay, because before I thought the dialogue and the character actions were sort of realistic. Like especially because they were like 10 or 11. I was like, surprisingly, like, yeah, this is how kids would act. I thought, but then following the uncle, I was like, I don't really think anyone. And I'm not the uncle. I think there are people like that who have those reactions, but specifically the girlfriend, like the uncle's girlfriend for me, where I was like, really? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Come on. It's sort of a weird reaction. But then also, the manga does this frequently, where it'll just, like, cut away from PunPun for, like, just, like, 5 chapters at a time. It'll be like, here's this completely unrelated thing. And that kind of started to piss me off. And maybe I missed some, like, deeper meaning with those other characters and stuff, like the
You're
cult.
talking about the cult and 2 side characters, yeah. I know what you mean.
I actually did, like, I think it's Seiko, or Psycho, who's, like, kind of like
been
the
too long.
Yeah. The name's blurred because I was speed reading, but like I think it's Seiko who's like he's like the kind of edgy guy who just hates life, and then he's friends with like I believe like the autistic kid, or
I don't think it's like ever confirmed what he has.
It's never confirmed, but I think it's like the way the teachers treat him and other classmates sort of treat the kid. Like I think it's very heavily like hinted or coded, I suppose, that he is at the very least on the spectrum. And him and Psycho are they are friends, and that was actually my favorite. All of those chapters were my favorite chapters of the manga.
Yeah, because they're not.
Because
one of them is trying to help the other.
Yeah.
And the other is just, trying to make his way through life. And it's just nice to read, They were good friends.
And then they have a happy ending.
And then you go back to PunPun.
And then
like
it'll just cut back to PunPun, yeah.
It's just agony afterward.
But, like, post the uncle stuff is where the manga started to lose me, because then the uncle cheats on his girlfriend and, like, disappears for, like, 2 weeks before coming back and being like, oh my god, I can't believe I cheated on you. Like, he just, like, wanders the streets of Japan, by the way, for, like, 2 weeks afterwards, and he, like, talks to a bunch of people where he's like, I'm the worst person ever, I should just kill myself, and it's like, alright, man, please seek help, like, do something other than just wander the street. But he finally goes back, and his girlfriend takes him back, which, again, I'm sure she could do much better. Like, you don't got to be dating a PunPun, There's so many better people out there in the world. But while the uncle is missing, his girlfriend does a thing to PunPun. I'm just gonna say it, Stewie. All right, I'm just gonna say it. She rapes him. That happens, and oh, dude. I was losing my mind at this point. I'm not gonna lie to you, Stewie.
Yeah, it's the fairly normal reaction.
Because at this point I had realized. I want to say also I think that was around like chapter 40, because Stewie, you told me you'd be impressed if I made it to chapter 40. So I made that my goal.
Yeah,
I did. I was like, I'm gonna make it to chapter 40 and I'm gonna stop. I was like, I don't like it, because by like 20 I realized I was like, I'm not enjoying this. So I'm gonna get to 40, I'll read it and I'll quit, and then I was gonna read like a summary, because obviously we still had to make this video because we promised the viewers. So I was going to make a summary and then explain why I didn't like the first 40 chapters, but I couldn't find a fucking summary. So then I just had to keep reading. And I tried again around 70. I was like, please. I was like, give me a wiki like recap, and I couldn't fucking find one. And I didn't want to watch a YouTube video because I was doing things. And I didn't have headphones. So I was like, fuck. I was like, okay, I'll just read it. But PunPun gets raped, and I at this point realized nothing happy was going to happen in this manga, and and I realized also the way the author was writing it was just not going to jive with me, because I consider myself a decently optimistic human being, and everything that was happening in this manga was the complete opposite of that. And it just wasn't working in my brain. Something isn't you can't put the square in the triangle hole, it just doesn't work. And I'm losing it. So PunPun gets raped, But then he just like, he's not fine afterwards, but like, nothing comes of it. It just happens. He doesn't tell anybody. He doesn't, like, he seems sad, but almost like it's like never even brought up towards the end, I thought. Like, it just came out, it was for no reason, I felt. Because I don't know if you remember, like, I don't think anything else happens with it. Like, it just happens, and she goes, don't tell anybody. And then he's like, I never did. And I was like, what?
I don't remember precisely. I think he tries to have a conversation with his uncle about it later. Like, tries to confront him about it. And his uncle just kind of like...
I think you're right.
I think he doesn't blow him off, but he's just like kind of like, yeah, man, but I love her. So, like, sorry that happened to you. And PunPun's like, all right, man, fuck you too. And just leaves.
I think you're right. Because then there's a lot of time jumps, and this is a little bit before that, I should say, was probably the only thing I actually enjoyed with PunPun, like being the main character, which was him going to middle school. So he had stopped talking to Aiko because he'd like lied to Aiko, and then fucking blew up in her face when they're like 10, where she's like, how could you lie to me? And he was like, how could you told me you were gonna kill me? He was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And he like loses it.
Yeah, you fucking lose it.
Yeah, which like I was like, yes, PunPun, tell her, like, shut her up, man. She's the whole summer she's been like, I'm gonna kill you. And it's always, the art, by the way, is beautiful, and it's drawn to perfection. Like Aiko's face, like, it looks like she's gonna murder PunPun. She looks like a shonen villain. Like, I swear to God, the entire time I was like, is she gonna murder, like, actually try to murder this poor child? I should mention, by the way, I actually thought she was the one that was gonna rape PunPun and then try to murder him, which would have, I thought that's what was gonna happen. Like, I figured the uncle, because you see that a lot, but originally when I met Aiko and she was like, if you lie to me, I'll kill you, I was like, okay, so this is where things start to go wrong for poor PunPun here. I was like, this is where the problems occur. But regardless, they go to middle school, where after PunPun freaks out, rightfully so, at Aiko, they like haven't spoken for like 2 years, but he can't get over her. He just can't get her out of his mind. But she's got a boyfriend now. And her boyfriend plays badminton, as does PunPun. And her boyfriend's actually, like, super chill. And
he's like the nicest person in the manga.
I think he is the nicest person. And the manga, like, it turned into, like, a shonen. It turned into, like,
for a minute there, yeah.
Yeah, it was genuinely because, like, PunPun and her boyfriend, I can't remember his name because he never comes back up after this little, like, 10-chapter arc.
I don't fucking blame him.
No, I don't. He gets out. He goes and has a great life, is my headcanon. But PunPun and the boyfriend, they become, like, friends by, like, accident. And it's all, I will say, PunPun doesn't really ever have any friends because he doesn't talk a lot, and which is also done beautifully because he never has speech bubbles in the manga. It'll just be like a panel of like what he said, like it'll just, like it's like you're reading an actual book, which I really liked. Or there'll be like a narrator, which you never really see in manga, like you're actually reading like a novel, and I thought that was very interesting. But they become friends because the boyfriend is like, man, you're a nice listener. And everyone says that to PunPun in the manga, and it's just because he doesn't speak. And I feel really bad for him, because, like, he's not really a nice listener. He just doesn't know how to talk to people, you know? And the whole time I was like, man, just speak up. Do something for yourself, PunPun. Regardless, like the shonen arc, they become friends. The boyfriend finds out that PunPun likes Aiko. And instead of, like, being like, oh, we can never be friends again, he goes, man, you're my best friend in the world. Here's what's going to happen. If I lose the badminton tournament, then you can keep Aiko. But if I win, she's mine. And PunPun, like, agrees to it. He's like, okay, sounds solid. The only problem is the boyfriend's got, like, a foot injury. I don't remember what the foot injury is, but I think it was, like, a disease or something, where, like, the more he kept playing, the worse and worse his foot was going to get.
I think it was just a sprained ankle. Like,
it might have just, no, he had, really like, there was, like, a wound. Like, his leg was bleeding, or his foot was bleeding in one of the panels.
Okay, never mind.
He does sprain his ankle, but that's right before. Like, I think that's his excuse when he drops in one of the practice matches, where he goes, oh, I sprained my ankle, I'll be fine by next week, or something like that. Because he has, like, it was really bad.
Telling the truth. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sure, but And then you just get this like shonen, like it's fucking haiku, like the volleyball manga anime, where it's just a badminton match, and it's drawn perfectly. Like I was like, I'm reading a shonen. Is this what the rest of the manga is? But then he loses, and there's like a shonen moment where he's crying on the floor, and everyone around him is like, "Oh, your leg, you could have won," because he almost wins the match, and then he loses because it was like, and they're like, "Oh, you could have won," and he like looks up and locks eyes with PunPun, and him and PunPun lock eyes, and he goes, "It's a loss for me, PunPun, but it's your win." Like while everyone else is listening, like an actual shonen manga. I was like, "Wait a minute!" Like seriously, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And then PunPun talks to Aiko, and then she just leaves because like, PunPun doesn't really know how to talk to people. And also, how do you convey that, like, your ex-boyfriend said that if he lost a match, you'd now be my girlfriend? Like, that's not how that works, You're like, okay. So then they kind of split up, and this is where Aiko sort of disappears for a while. PunPun can never stop talking about her, at least in his inner monologue. But, then we move on to the art girl, where... and we're about to get into more fucked up shit, Stewie. And it pains me to think about it. But,
yeah.
PunPun gets with I say gets with. He goes on a date. I think he's in high school at this period. He's like 16 or 17 or something like that. I think he's 16.
Yeah. Because the tournament was when he was like 14.
Yeah, he was like 14. And all the time jumps are always like 2 years. And then so he gets with this artist who's got like this whole friend group of artists and stuff. And I think that they go on like 1 or 2 dates, and it's going pretty well. Except that the whole time they're on the dates, all PunPun can think about is he doesn't really like this girl and he wants to be with Aiko. And also he really just wants to have sex. And that's it. Those are the 2 things he can think about. He pops a lot of boners in this, by the way. There's just passages where, like, PunPun he'll just be talking to a girl, and it'll be like, and then PunPun popped the biggest, massive, most raging boner, and I'm just like, okay, man, I didn't need to know that. And it doesn't do anything. Nobody ever, like, finds it, And so I'm like, why? I don't know. Every time that happened, I was like, please stop.
It happens a lot.
Like, it happens so much. It's like, because I figured he'd get caught. Because I'm like, it's like, okay, because that's weird, and that's the thing you can catch him for, and then people will be like, oh, he's disgusting, but, like, never, ever does it, like, come up that he just, like, has boners in public because a girl briskly touched his fucking shoulder, Regardless, he gets with this artist girl, they go on a couple dates, it's going okay, he's trying to have sex with her, and I don't even remember what led up to it. I think he, like, puts his hand on her, like, leg or something. And she, like, very politely is like, oh, no, like, I really like you, PunPun, but I don't want to do that. And then he tries to rape her. Which she also takes way too fucking calmly. This is another one of the problems. Same situation with the uncle. PunPun almost rapes her. I didn't understand that.
Even when I was first reading it.
She goes, stop it. Like, stop it. And she was, and that was fine, because I know sometimes when that situation is, you've read stories and heard stories, I feel like everyone has, where it's like, some people lock up, they don't know what to do. But she's like, get off of me, stop. And PunPun realizes what he's doing, and he's like, oh shit, I don't want to be a piece of shit. So he gets off, and then she, like, looks at him and is like, how dare you almost do that? But bye. And then never tells anyone, never says anything, doesn't ever, like, talk to PunPun again. And I'm, like, the whole time I was like, you almost got raped. Like, you almost got raped. And your reaction is, that was fucked up of you. Goodbye. What? I don't know. I feel like there's more reaction to have than that. Especially because, like, the whole time PunPun was like, my life is ruined. She's going to tell everyone and no one's going to want to talk to me anymore. And I was like, dude, got bigger things to worry about, man, than just, like, that. I was like, you need to actually look at yourself. But whatever.
I think that this is when he becomes the tetrahedron, right?
I
Or is that later? That might be later, Theodore.
I think it's a little later. I don't remember. But then we cut 2 years. He becomes 18. He gets the job, and he's just living like a depressed life. Like his life just sucks. And I'm trying to remember. I don't remember like too much happening when he was 18, because I think he moves out at 20. Because remember he turns 20, and then, or maybe it's 18. Maybe he moves out at 18. I don't know if you remember. Because I know he moves out.
I don't.
And he gets his like own place, and it's like neat. He's got his own place, and he sets like a goal. And I think he sets the goal that when he is 20, if nothing in life has changed and gotten better, he will kill himself. But then over like sort of the course, he meets this manga artist, and they kind of start, I don't want to say going out on dates, but they're like almost dates. Like it's kind of like half date, half not, and PunPun's very confused by it. But the manga artist, from previous interactions, had, like, PunPun had written in a journal, and she was like, oh my god, this story that's actually just your life you wrote is so very interesting. Can you continue writing it? And PunPun's like, sure, because she wants to turn it into a manga. So then they kind of spend the next, like, chunk of his life together, and they do end up having sex. And we have a repeat situation where, like, she sort of comes on to PunPun a little bit, and then he goes, you don't understand, I'm such a bad person, I haven't masturbated in 3 years, and I did for the first time in 3 years last night because of you. And then she just, like, shrugs it off, and I'm at this point I was seriously contemplating what the fuck is wrong with people in the PunPun universe doing, because this is not normal. And I don't mean from PunPun.
No one is, like...
No one's normal.
Well,
no one is well. Well, especially the manga artist, because she's got like an abusive sort of ex-husband who like cheated on her that she still kind of sees on the side, and he's like kind of a dick but not a dick. And then her and PunPun get together and they like fuck, and like you think it's like, okay, so they're gonna stay together, and then she goes, I don't really want to date you. I like hanging out with you, and we can fuck from time to time, but I don't want to date you, which like ruins PunPun. That I was like a cementing factor in PunPun's life, where I think at that point he just gave up, like, because he was just like, I can't do it anymore. And then he finds, well, before he finds Aiko again, the manga artist says she's pregnant, and then says it's not PunPun's child, but realizes she kind of does love PunPun, and that she would want. So she kind of wants to stay with PunPun. She's like, can you come with me to the abortion clinic? Because I don't want to have this baby. And then when PunPun is supposed to do that, he runs into Aiko again for the first time in like 5 years or 6 years or something like that. And then him and Aiko kind of have like a little date. And then at the end of that date, he almost rapes Aiko. He misses the abortion clinic thing, I should say.
Also, I think you should say, when he meets Aiko again, he lies to her. Not he lies to her because she's like, aren't you PunPun? And he's like, no, I am so and so. I forget which name he said.
He gives a fake name.
No, it's someone he knew, but I forget who it was. But yeah, it's not his name. He lies to her, and we haven't mentioned this because we've been kind of doing it rapid fire. But throughout the manga, he like changes form, like basically how he's drawn. And that's what I meant by tetrahedron earlier, because like he becomes like this like weird, I don't know if it's a tetrahedron, but it's like a weird pyramid shape. It's been too long.
Yeah, he has like the pyramid shape.
And that's basically when like he stops caring. And I think when he meets Aiko again, I think that's the first time we see him in his mostly human form.
Yeah. He
starts off as bird, and
then he gets a body with the weird head.
Yeah, once he starts lying, he becomes a body with the weird head.
Which, like I said, all the artistic decisions about this manga are a 10 out of 10 across the board, fantastic. And the writing for me is where I'm like, I hate this. Also, I don't know what images are on screen. Probably not a lot.
I could send you pictures of...
I mean, I'll just find them, and the viewers watching or listening will be seeing them, but it'll probably... For other videos, I like to have like an assortment of photos. Like Fire Punch has like a decent amount of images on screen. PunPun, I think I'm going to keep it to just a couple, because it's not much I could show. You know, I can't show any of the fucked up things, and then most of it is just like people talking. So I'll just find like the best looking non fucked up images and put them on screen. Regardless, him and Aiko are kind of going together, and he almost rapes her, and she just like tells him to back off, which I'm just like, Jesus Christ! Like every person in this manga is like.
He's also like having a breakdown when he does it. It's not like
yeah,
feeling bad about it. He like when he's like on top there, he goes, "I want to ruin everything about you."
Yeah,
that's like
so,
verbatim what he says.
So what happens is
it's so fucked up.
She's like talking about her life, and then PunPun sort of like breaks because his entire life since meeting Aiko has been centered around the thing she said, where she was like, "You can't lie to me, and if you break your promise, I'll kill you." And then like PunPun has just snaps when he's like talking with Aiko. This is like his third or fourth date with her, and she like kind of lets slip by accident. She doesn't really remember much of her childhood or really care. You know, she's like, it's like a slip of the, not even a slip of the tongue. Like to her, it's just like, oh, we were 7. You know, like I'm not even thinking about that. We were 7, and that just breaks PunPun. Hence, him trying to rape her and being like, "I'm gonna ruin everything about you." And then he gets off because he's like, "I also, you know, I don't want to rape anybody," which I respect PunPun for that. For actually not going, he almost does it twice, but he doesn't go through with it. And I'm like, okay, if he went through with it, I actually might have just quit the manga. I will say, Stewie, I might have been 70 or 80 chapters deep, but I would have been like, no, not doing that. But this is where the shit begins, because after the rape, she runs away, and she's like, I think she says to him, she's like, "I didn't know you were like that. I didn't want to, like, I wouldn't have been going out with you if all I knew, like, is you just wanted sex." And then PunPun has another breakdown where he, like, runs into her, and he's like, no, listen, I am PunPun, and also I don't want sex, but, like, my entire life has revolved around you, and, like, I do want to have sex with you, but, like, also I love you, and, like, you kind of ruined my life last night by saying the thing you said. And then she is like, oh my god, actually, I love you, and I haven't stopped thinking about that either. We should run away. And PunPun's like, yes, absolutely. But then Aiko's like, well, I can't run away because I'm still, like, attached to my shitty mom, who is, like, just a piece of shit, like everybody is in this manga. So what do? But go over. I think they have sex before this. I think they have sex a couple times. But then they go over to Aiko's mom's house, and Aiko's mom just fucking loses it. Just completely is like, how dare you sleep with a man? How dare you want to move out when they're like 22 now, by the way, you know, where it's like, okay, clear, like this woman is just crazy. And then she like picks up a knife and tries to attack Aiko. And I think she like cuts Aiko's like stomach or something. Not like badly, just like a gash. And then PunPun murders this woman. Just goes for it.
Like he smashes her skull.
Yeah, smashes her skull open. He's like screaming about it the whole time. He's like, "Don't ever touch Aiko," yada yada. And Aiko's just watching. But then Aiko still loves him. And I think this is when he turns into the, like, black thing, right? With, like, the 3 eyes. At least this is what I remember him being that.
Yeah.
And there's one where he like, talks to this mailman after murdering this woman, and is like, oh, she stepped outside. I'm a friend of her daughter's. And then he's like, oh, okay, cool. And then, like, takes the mail or whatever. But this moment really hit me afterwards, where he looks in the mirror, kind of like after this whole event, and he just stares at himself being this like black form with like the 3 eyes, because he sometimes has the 3 eyes or whatever, and he just goes, did I always look like this? That shit hit me, so I ain't gonna lie, I did not like this manga. I still don't like it afterwards, and I still don't like it now, but that was the only part of the manga where I went, damn bro.
Yeah,
I was like,
moments.
Yeah, I was like, shit, that's good. Like that, I mean, god damn. But then they bury the body, and they just do typical, like, fucking, like, Breaking Bad shenanigans out of nowhere. They're like, we gotta roll the body up and bury the body and cover our tracks. And I was like, you guys should be freaking out about this more. Like, none of them are freaking out the normal amount. I get why PunPun's not.
Well,
like PunPun has gone.
PunPun is gone. But as for Aiko, we also didn't mention, because like I said, rapid fire.
Yeah.
All the parents in this manga are kind of like horrible people. Like
That's
for PunPun,
true.
it's kind of like implied from what we said, but his mom physically and verbally abused him for like his entire life until she gets hospitalized.
She abuses the dad
from abusing
too.
him. Yeah.
Which we didn't mention, but at this point the mom was already dead. PunPun's mom was already dead. And there's this really earlier in the manga, PunPun's dad gets arrested for a little bit because like the way you think what happens is PunPun comes downstairs when he's a kid, sees his mom like on the floor knocked out, the entire room's fucked up, and the dad goes, "A robber broke into the house, PunPun. You have to believe me." But then you're kind of shown when the mom is like in the hospital and growing as a person that PunPun's mother is insane. And she goes on a date with a guy who's cheating on his wife, and when he goes, "Yeah, so I'm gonna leave you because I want to stay with my wife and you're just kind of my side piece," she like grabs a knife and is like, "I'm gonna murder myself and I'm gonna murder you," and she's like losing it. And then we get a flashback to the night like PunPun's dad like beat her, or that's presumably what happened, but we actually see, and I don't know if she was just being insane in this moment, but we actually see her pick up a knife and be like, "I'm gonna murder myself, I'm gonna murder you, and then I'm gonna murder our 8-year-old son." And then like PunPun's dad like smacks her out of, like, I assume to like save his life and stop his son. And so nobody's good in this manga is the reason I'm mentioning this.
Yeah.
Except, I mean, PunPun's dad's not great, but like that was the right thing to do in that situation, I think. If you had to do something. Maybe.
No, she was kind of deranged.
Yeah.
that at that point.
Which I think is why they let him out of prison, because he didn't tell PunPun that. Like, he didn't want to ruin PunPun, like, PunPun's mother in PunPun's eyes, but I think that's why he got out of prison. Because he gets out of prison in, like, a week.
Yeah, I genuinely don't remember if he,
They don't say it at the time. Like, to PunPun,
yeah.
His dad gets out of prison, has one conversation with him where he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to go work on spaceships in America," and then leaves. And then the only other time he sees him is when he comes back right before PunPun moves out, and he goes, "PunPun, move in with me." And PunPun goes, "No." And his dad leaves. His dad never comes back in the entire manga. And I was like, okay, shit. Getting back to actually what's happening. They bury Aiko's mom's body, and then PunPun almost kills Aiko because, like, he's just gone fully insane at this point. Before she, like, convinces him not to, and then they decide, like, fuck it, let's just move. Let's go to the place we always wanted to go to as kids, and let's just kind of explore around Japan. And at this point, we cut back to the manga artist who wants to start looking for PunPun because she wants to have the baby and realizes she kind of likes PunPun, and like her life was better with him than it was without him. So she's like, I'm gonna go look for PunPun and try to save him because she knows he's probably going through some fucked up things. And then we cut back to PunPun, who's going on a fun little road trip with Aiko, where he brutally beats up a random guy they meet in a fucking gas station.
Yeah, I think he like said something about Aiko.
Yeah, well, they were talking and they were like chill, and yeah, and then he said something about Aiko. Like, he set PunPun off, so PunPun just starts beating the shit out of him. And then they like Aiko stops him and they run away, and then they have this moment in a fucking like restaurant, like just in a public space where like, as like punishment, PunPun's like, okay, you should stab out my right eye. And Aiko goes, okay, and then she kind of like barely pokes it. And he goes, no! You need to fully stab my eye to the brain! You need to stab, like, he's screaming in this public place. And I was like, is nobody gonna call the fucking cops? Like, this dude's just screaming about stabbing his eyeball, and then she does it. So PunPun just doesn't have an eyeball anymore. He just loses one of his eyes for the foreseeable future. And they put like a little bandage on it. And I'm just like, at this point I was losing my mind straight. I'm not gonna lie, I had a headache. You know, I was reading for like 5 hours straight. I wasn't liking any of what I was reading except the art was pretty. But it eventually ends where, I mean, they just both go insane.
Yeah, Aiko she never got treatment for a stab wound, I should
Yeah,
say.
yeah. So she
So
was
she's
getting
slowly
sick.
just been getting sick because like the wound's infected. Pumpun's just like giving her pills and like shoving pills in her mouth, like
Yeah,
take these, because they want to go to hospital. Because if they go to hospital, they're gonna have to explain why she stabbed, and
yeah.
they don't want
They'd
to,
get caught was the whole thing. I
yeah.
also Pun Pun was also kind of starting to get sick because Aiko says it a lot. Where Aiko will be like, "You have a fever, Pun Pun," and he'll be like, "Ah, whatever." He's like, "Well," so both of them are like just getting worse and worse mentally and physically until this shit. I don't like either of these characters, but I felt very bad for Pun Pun because they go to bed and he wakes up and Aiko hung herself and she has like a little gag in her mouth so she didn't scream or anything. And like you just watch as Pun Pun freaks out, lifts her body up, gets her out of this rope, and is like tries to bring her back to life. It doesn't work. Runs to the payphone with her on his back. Tries to call anybody. The payphone doesn't work. Fucking runs another like I don't even know how long, and then just like collapses. And again tries to like bring her back to life, and it just doesn't work. And then these two kids show up, and they just go, "Oh hey, what's up, dude?" And Pun Pun's like, because they're also like, "Why you like bloody and naked, bro? What's going on?" And he's like, "I left everything back at the payphone," and they're just like, "Damn, all right, bye." And then the kids just like leave, and there's just a dead body in front of them. And I guess she doesn't like wholly look dead. Like I guess she could have been asleep to them, but like
He does cover her up
he
with
did.
like
Yeah,
the
I
big
guess he
sun
did.
hat.
Dude, I just felt really bad for Pun Pun.
Oh yeah, no, he's ruined like utterly
It's
at that.
well, yeah, because it's technically the love of his life, but also the scene where he wakes up and she's like, she hung her or hanged herself, and it's like you see it from just the same angle. Like if it was just like a movie, like it was one shot where he like, and it's just a bunch of panels where he wakes up, notices she's not next to him, looks around, doesn't see her, turns around, she's, dead behind him. He's like stands up, and this is all like the same like panels. Again, art masterfully well done. You see him like run up to her, lift her up. I was just like, fuck, man, like that shit was heavy. And then he tries to kill himself.
Yeah, he goes back to where we didn't really mention this because
The
it's not really
factory,
important.
yeah, the factory.
Yeah, as a kid, with like when he first met Aiko, he had a bunch of childhood friends, and they all stuck into this factory, and it was like a big fire hazard, and they're like fucking around in there, and one of the kids almost accidentally sets fire to it, and they all get scared after that and leave, except for him and Aiko, who go up to the top, and they like have this little, like nice little moment where they're like chatting. And,
You mean where they
it's
say
like
she's gonna kill him if he lies?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was trying to avoid that.
But then they see someone. There's someone up there with him.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, they see someone, they freak out, and they leave. But he goes back there, and he like tries to stab himself with his knife.
Yeah, it's just some like shitty fucked up knife.
Yeah, he tries to cut out his eyes first, I think, like his last eye.
I don't think he gets to the eye. I think he stabs himself first and then is going to get to the eye. But then the manga artist shows up. And she's like, "I saved you, Pun Pun," which is... There's like a lot of comedy in here. Like, this is the most fucked up shit you'll ever see. And then there'll just be like jokes. And I'm always like, I don't know. Like every time it happens, I'm always like, really? Like, okay.
Yeah. She does take the knife from him first.
She does save him. I will say. And then they get him to the hospital, and like he forgets who he is for a little bit. Then he gets his memories back, and then they kind of come to an agreement where she's like, "Listen, I want to have this kid, and I want you to be the dad." And Pun Pun's just kind of like you see Pun Pun's inner dialogue where he's just like, "Everything is pointless. Life sucks. I don't have Aiko anymore. I don't want to live anymore. I just want to die. Why didn't you let me die? Why didn't you let me die?" And then like out loud he goes, "Yeah, I'll raise the kid with you." And then that's just that. And then like the next / last chapter is a high school reunion where a character we haven't mentioned, who was like Pun Pun's childhood friend, and he moved away before they like grew up. He comes back for this like reunion to just see all his like childhood friends again, and he runs into Pun Pun, who at this point has like reverted back to bird Pun Pun, and he's like, "Oh my god, it's you!" But you're seeing like for the first time in the manga, you're seeing how other people see PunPun, where he's like, "Oh my god, that's you," and then his inner dialogue is like, "I don't remember this guy's name. I know who this guy is. I recognize that face, but I don't remember his name." And they just like hang out for a while, and then like the very last shot of the manga is like PunPun, or not the last shot, but the last thing with PunPun is him with his family, with like the manga artist saying goodbye to his childhood friend, and then his childhood friend being like, "Man, I really wish I remembered that guy's name. I wonder what his name was." And then I think there was some like narrator dialogue where it was kind of explaining like the two differences, where it's like, well, this guy it just had a great life, whereas like they explained that like PunPun forever was sad, essentially. Like forever his life sucked, and I was like, oh. But then the last scene of the manga is a bunch of kids in school basically doing the exact same thing with how like the manga opened, where a little boy sees a new transfer student who's a girl, immediately falls in love, and then this group of boys go, "What is sex?" which is exactly what happened to PunPun at the very beginning of the manga. So I think the end of the manga, I don't know what any of this means. Sweet, I don't know if you have any thoughts on what any of this means.
I mean, I think it's just supposed to like, I don't know. It's some commentary about how like life is just kind of like sucky.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and you just kind of have to like, deal with it. That's why I got. It's not very deep thought.
No, none of us. Well, I tried to look into the Reddit. I tried to go through like Reddit threads and stuff, like PunPun Reddit threads, to truly see like what did fans of the people who enjoyed this manga, how did they, feel about it? What were their takeaway? And from what I could gather, most people were saying that like essentially the ending of the manga is the cycle will always continue, life will always suck, and it is showing forever like the same shitty cycles of life will happen. And then also that PunPun was destined to never have a good life, which is just like so different to how I view life that I'm like, I said it earlier, but it's trying to put the square in the triangle, I'm just like, I can't. This manga really did not make me happy. I'm a lot worse for wear after reading this yesterday.
Yeah, it's typically the experience.
Yeah.
It fucked me up for like a good couple of days when I read it.
See, I don't know. Okay, I don't know about you, but for me, it's not even like fucked up shit happens in it. Oh, I'm fucked up. I'm just angry. I'm angry that I read this. I'm just mad I wasted my time because I just so didn't enjoy it. Like, I so just disagree with like the sentiment just dripping off of it that I'm like, ugh, I hate you. I'm like, ugh. And I don't know, normally I can deal with things that are like pessimistic and stuff. That's not normally like a problem for me, but it's just something about the way this was written where I was just like I don't know. I was not enjoying it. But there was some optimism in here with like Psycho or whatever and the other guy in the cult stuff.
Yeah, the cult stuff is a lot. I don't remember that. Yeah, there was so much of it.
It just doesn't have anything to do with it. I figured like it would matter. Like I figured PunPun would join it.
It kind of comes back with Aiko's mom and
Aiko's mom. Yeah, Aiko's mom is attached, but PunPun never. Yeah. PunPun like never interacts with it.
Yeah, he never really does outside of Aiko's mom.
Yeah, I don't.
That was just weird. I didn't really like
the whole cult stuff was weird, but I really liked that Psycho and his like friend stopped being friends because like Psycho, he's not like a terrible guy, but he's not like the greatest. And they kind of like yell at each other, but then Psycho learns about the cult stuff and is like, "Oh wait, I gotta go save my homie." And then like his homie who was gonna kill himself because the entire cult was like killing themselves. Like Psycho runs into a burning building and does end up saving him, and they end up becoming friends again. And I was like, wow, how nice and, like, optimistic. And then, like, right after that, you get to PunPun and Aiko dying and murdering each other. And I was like, oh, okay. I just took it away. I felt happiness, and then it ripped it out from underneath me. But that's PunPun. Do you have any other things you want to say about PunPun?
If you have mental problems, don't read it.
We should have. I mean, I kind of did give a little trigger warning earlier.
Coming from someone who had mental problems and read it, don't.
I'm of sound mind when I read it, and I'm very angry. But But no, definitely if you struggle with, I feel like this recap would have hurt people. Like I feel like I'm sorry if you watch this video and you like struggle with any of the things we have mentioned here today, because I'm sure we did not assist you. And this manga will not do that either, unless you don't read the words. If you just look at the really pretty art, maybe even then it's still fucked up.
Even the art.
But you can fill in what you want to think. You know, you can be like, oh, it's kind of dark, but like maybe they're just having goofy fun times. You know, you could gaslight yourself is what I'm saying, which is never a good idea, but you could give it a shot. I don't know what number would you give PunPun? What would you rate PunPun?
Probably like a 4 out of 5 or an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, So I think you're right. If I were to be like
B plus.
That's fair.
If you want another one.
If you were to be as objective as humanly possible, or if I were to be as objective as humanly possible, and like no feelings were to be put into a rating of PunPun, I would probably give it like an 8 or a 9 or something. Like I see why people put this on like the best mangas of all time list, because if you look at those, you'll see PunPun is on a lot of them, and I can understand that. From a enjoyment sort of you know, an enjoyment look on this. This is like a 2. I did not enjoy any of this, except
you probably find more joy hitting like small creatures in a video game. Don't do that in real life.
I think I would find more joy like skipping a rock on a river by myself. Like I think I'd just have more joy in that, which is not anything I'd ever want to do. You know, or just like hitting a brick against another brick, where I'm just like, brick, you know, like I think I'd have more fun doing that for like hours on end than I would reading PunPun. And I wanted to explain it in this video, but I don't know how to explain it. I think I did an okay job, but like Fire Punch was fucked up. But I enjoyed Fire Punch.
Yeah, Fire Punch is fucked up, but there's like glimmers of light in the
and it kind of has
miasma of entropy that is Fire Punch.
And like Fire Punch is fucked. I guess maybe what does
it also kind of has a hopeful ending.
That's what I was gonna say. I think for me, like having the hopeful ending that shows, because I do, you know, optimism and stuff. It's like I've said this entire video. So like Fire Punch kind of has that hopeful ending, and then also I think adding like superpowers and stuff kind of like dents the goblin inside of me, where I'm like, the guy's on fire and he punches people. Is his life hell? Sure, but he just punched a guy and his head exploded, and I'm like, that's fun, you know. Whereas with PunPun, it's like, oh, he just murdered a woman. None of them have superpowers. He just actually murdered a person. You know, like I'm like. I guess what does it is like the events of PunPun could happen, and I think that's what fucks my brain up. Where I don't want to experience, you know what I mean? Where I don't even want to think about that. Where I'm like, I don't want to have that thought that like people are out there living the PunPun life, because that terrifies me. Whereas with Fire Punch, I'm like, the guy's on fire and he's walking around for like 10,000 years straight. This can't happen. My brain's okay with this. But that's PunPun. I don't really know. I don't think I have anything else to say. Do you?
No, not really.
All right. I'll leave it at this, okay? Don't read this manga. Don't read this. Normally I'd tell you guys to go check out the things I review on this channel. Just don't. Unless you really want to just see some fucked up shit. That being said, I will shout out, hopefully, sometime in the middle of September, another Nerds Cantos will come out, and it'll be a review of JoJo's Part 7. All of us will be there. It'll be a nice book club, and I think we're just going to start doing that, Stewie, if you agree. I think that's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
So, look forward to that video if you care enough. I don't know. I don't really give a shit if you do or not, but hey, go have a good one, unlike PunPun.